In 10 years, she never once admitted she was wrong. Not once. She thought her ego was protecting her, but it was actually building a wall between us, until I couldn't see her anymore. As an aerospace engineer, I deal with precision. If a calculation is off by a fraction of a millimeter, the entire mission fails. In my world, admitting a mistake isn't a sign of weakness. It's a requirement for survival. If you're wrong, you fix it, or people get hurt. I brought that same honesty to my marriage with Elena. I thought that by being a man who could apologize, who could take responsibility, I was showing her the way. I didn't realize that for Elena, an apology was a surrender. To her, being wrong was a death sentence for her pride, and she would rather burn our entire relationship to the ground than say the words, "I am sorry." When we first started dating, I found her confidence attractive. Elena was bold, certain, and never wavered. I thought it was strength. But as the years turned into a decade, I realized it wasn't strength. It was a shield. A shield that she used to deflect any accountability for the pain she caused. Every argument followed the same exhausting pattern. It didn't matter if it was something small, like her forgetting a major commitment we had made, or something massive, like her making a financial decision that affected both of us without asking. I would approach her calmly. I would tell her how I felt, and instead of an apology, I would get a, "Yes, but." "Yes, I forgot the dinner, but it's because you didn't remind me enough." "Yes, I spent the savings, but it's because you make me feel insecure about our lifestyle." She was a master of the reverse blame. Every time I reached out for an apology, she turned it into a list of my failures. I would go into a conversation feeling hurt, and I would leave it feeling like I was the one who owed her an apology. It was a psychological shell game, and for 10 years, I let her win because I loved her and I wanted peace. I thought that if I was big enough for both of us, we would survive. But love doesn't survive in an environment where one person is always the judge and the other is always the defendant. I began to feel a deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. It wasn't the kind of tiredness that a night of sleep could fix. It was the exhaustion of never being heard. It was the weight of carrying all the guilt for two people. I started to notice a change in myself. I stopped bringing things up. If she did something that hurt me, I'd just swallow the fire. I knew that if I spoke, it would only lead to a 2-hour lecture on why it was actually my fault. I became a ghost of the man I used to be. I was quiet, withdrawn, and hyper-cautious. I was living in a minefield where her ego was the trigger. The wall between us grew brick by brick. Every "yes, but" was a new layer of mortar. I looked at her across the dinner table and I didn't see my partner. I saw a brick wall. I saw a person who would rather be right in an empty house than wrong in a happy one. The tension finally reached its limit on a rainy Thursday evening in 2026. It wasn't a grand betrayal. It wasn't a hidden secret. It was the most mundane thing imaginable. I had been working on a very sensitive project for weeks, and I had asked Elena to make sure she didn't throw away a specific folder of documents on the kitchen counter. I had told her 3 times how important it was. When I got home, the folder was gone. She had tossed it in the recycling bin, which had already been picked up. I stood in the kitchen, feeling a cold wave of despair. It was hundreds of hours of work, gone because of a moment of her thoughtlessness. I took a deep breath. I didn't yell. I didn't name call. "Elena," I said, my voice sounding flat and tired even to my own ears. "The folder is gone. I asked you so many times to be careful with it. This is going to set me back weeks. Can you just acknowledge that you messed up here? I just need to hear you say you're sorry." She didn't even look up from her laptop. I saw her jaw tighten. I saw the wall go up instantly. "Well, Gabriel, maybe if you didn't leave your important papers in the kitchen where I'm trying to keep a clean house, this wouldn't happen. It's actually very stressful for me to have to clean up after you all the time. If you were more organized, your work wouldn't be in the trash." I felt something snap inside me. It wasn't a loud bang. It was the sound of a final thread breaking. "Elena," I said, walking over to her, "I'm not talking about the kitchen. I'm talking about my work. I'm talking about the fact that I told you it was important, and you threw it away. I just want an apology. Just one. No buts. No blaming me. Just, I'm sorry I threw away your work. She finally looked at me, her eyes flashing with that familiar, cold defiance. I'm not going to apologize for trying to maintain our home. You're being incredibly dramatic. If you're so upset, it's because you're already stressed from work and you're taking it out on me. You should really look at why you're so angry, Gabriel. I looked at her, and I realized with a terrifying finality that she would never change. She would follow me to the gates of hell before she would admit a single mistake. She would watch me break into pieces before she would say the words that could heal me. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't try to explain the logic of the kitchen counter. I just turned around and walked to the bedroom. I heard her call out behind me, her voice tinged with that smug, victorious tone she always had when she thought she'd won. Oh, so now you're just going to pout? Typical. I didn't answer. I pulled my suitcase out from under the bed. The sound of the zipper moving along the track was the only sound in the room. I didn't pack everything. I just packed enough. I wasn't leaving out of anger. I was leaving out of an absolute, terminal exhaustion. I had no more words to give her. I had no more surrenders left in my soul. I walked back into the living room, suitcase in hand. She was still on the couch, but when she saw the bag, her face changed. For the first time in 10 years, the mask of certainty flickered. "What is that?" she asked, her voice finally losing its edge. "Where do you think you're going?" "I'm going to a hotel, Elena," I said. I stood by the door, feeling the weight of the handle in my hand. "Over a folder." "Gabriel, don't be ridiculous. Put the bag down. We'll talk about your anger issues tomorrow." "It's not the folder, Elena," I said, and a single tear escaped, running down my cheek. I didn't even bother to wipe it away. "It's the wall. I've been screaming at this wall for 10 years, hoping there was a person on the other side. But I've realized there's just more brick. I can't live with a person who is never wrong. Because if you're never wrong, then everything that's broken in this life is my fault. And I'm tired of being the only one who's sorry for our marriage." I opened the door. The cold, wet air of the night hit me, and it felt like the first breath of oxygen I'd had in a decade. "Gabriel, stop." "Fine, if it makes you feel better. I'm sorry you feel that way." "There, is that what you wanted?" I stopped and looked back at her. It was the ultimate non-apology. Even at the very end, she couldn't take responsibility. She was sorry I felt that way, but she wasn't sorry for what she had done. "No, Elena," I said, a sad smile touching my lips. "That's exactly what I expected." I stepped out and closed the door. I heard the lock click into place behind me. The same lock I had installed, the same door I had painted. It was her house now. Her and her ego. They could have each other. The messages started before I even reached the end of the street. My phone, resting in the center console, began to light up repeatedly. I didn't need to look at it to know what they said. Elena was a creature of habit. The first wave was anger. "You are being so manipulative right now. Leaving like this is just a way to punish me because you can't win an argument." The second wave, an hour later, was "Logic, Gabriel, come back. This is immature. We are adults. If you want an apology so badly, we can discuss why you feel entitled to one tomorrow morning." The third wave, at 3 a.m., was the first sign of a crack in her wall. "The house is too quiet. I can't sleep. Just come home and we can forget this ever happened." Forget it ever happened. That was her favorite phrase. To Elena, forgetting was the same as fixing. She thought that if enough time passed, the hurt would simply evaporate. She didn't understand that hurt doesn't evaporate, it accumulates. It settles into the foundation of a marriage like salt on a bridge, slowly eating away at the steel until the whole thing is ready to snap. I checked into a small, nondescript hotel near my office. The room was sterile and cold, but it felt honest. There was no one there to tell me that my feelings were dramatic. There was no one there to turn my pain into a lecture about my own character flaws. I spent the next 3 days in a state of quiet reflection. I went to work, I ate my meals alone, and I finally breathed. On Monday, I agreed to meet her for coffee. I chose a public place, a bright, busy cafe. I knew her ego wouldn't allow her to cause a scene in front of strangers. She was dressed perfectly, her hair done, her makeup flawless. She was still maintaining the image of the perfect wife, even as her world was splintering. "Are you done with your tantrum?" she asked as soon as I sat down. She tried to make it sound like a joke, but I could see the tension in her hands. "It wasn't a tantrum, Elena," I said. I looked at her, and I realized I didn't feel the old need to explain myself. I didn't feel the need to make her understand. It was an exit. "I'm filing for divorce." The cup in her hand shook, just for a second. "Divorce? Gabriel, be serious. People don't get divorced over a trash folder. This is ridiculous. Think about what people will say. Think about our families. It's not about the folder, and it's not about what people think," I said. "It's about the fact that in 10 years, I've never felt like I was on the same team as you. I've been your opponent, your student, and your scapegoat. But I've never been your partner. Because a partner can say, 'I'm sorry.' A partner can look at the person they love and say, 'I hurt you, and I'll do better.' You're incapable of that, Elena. You'd rather be right than be with me." For the next hour, I watched her try every tactic in her arsenal. She tried to gild me. She tried to bargain. She even tried a performative apology, a hollow, rehearsed sentence that had no weight behind it. "Fine," she snapped, her ego finally flaring up again when she realized she couldn't control me. "If you're so weak that you need constant validation and apologies to feel like a man, then go find someone else. You'll realize soon enough that I was the best thing that ever happened to you. You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "Maybe," I said, standing up. "But at least it'll be my mistake. And I'll be man enough to admit it." The divorce was long and difficult. Elena fought every step of the way, not because she wanted me back, but because she couldn't lose the settlement. To her, the legal process was just another argument she had to win. She told everyone that I had suffered a midlife crisis, and that I had abandoned her over nothing. She maintained her wall of righteousness until the very end. But a funny thing happens when you stop arguing with a wall. You realize how much space there is in the rest of the world. A year later, I was working on a new project. I met a woman named Clara. She was an artist, the complete opposite of my world of engineering. One evening, she accidentally knocked over a model I had been working on for hours. It shattered on the floor. I felt that old, familiar tension in my chest. I braced myself for the "yes, but." I waited for her to tell me it was my fault for putting it too close to the edge. I waited for her to tell me I was being dramatic for looking upset. Instead, Clara gasped. She immediately knelt on the floor, her face filled with genuine regret. "Oh my God, Gabriel. I am so sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going. That was so careless of me. Please, let me help you fix it. I feel terrible." I stood there, looking at her, and I felt like I was seeing a miracle. It was such a simple thing, a sincere apology, but it felt like water in a desert. I realized then that I wasn't dramatic or needy. I was just a human being who wanted to be treated with basic respect. I helped her pick up the pieces. We didn't argue, we didn't blame, we just fixed it together. I haven't seen Elena in a long time. I heard she's still telling people that I was the problem. I heard she's with someone new, a man who is quiet and submissive, someone who doesn't mind living in the shadow of her ego. I wish him luck. I've learned that a person who is never wrong is a person who can never grow. And a marriage without apologies is just a slow-motion collision. I'm done with walls. I'm building bridges now. In aerospace engineering, there is a concept known as fatigue failure. It's what happens when a material is subjected to repeated stress over a long period. On the surface, the wing looks solid. It looks like it can hold the weight. But deep inside, microscopic cracks are spreading. Then, one day, under a load it has carried 1,000 times before, it simply snaps. That was me, and a year after the divorce, I realized that Elena was still trying to fly with a broken wing, convinced that if she just ignored the damage, the laws of physics wouldn't apply to her. For months, I had stayed away from the social circles we used to share. But in a small town, or even a tight-knit professional community, the echoes of your past life always find a way to reach you. I heard through mutual friends that Elena was struggling. Not financially, she was too efficient for that, but socially. The wall of righteousness she had built was finally starting to isolate her. People who had once admired her strength were beginning to see it as rigidity. Without me there to absorb her blame, she had started turning her, yes, but on her friends, her colleagues, and even her family. When you're never wrong, eventually, you're the only one left in the room. The final confrontation didn't happen in a courtroom or a cafe. It happened at a charity gala for the local engineering society. I was there with Clara. We weren't trying to make a statement. We were just living our lives. Clara was wearing a dress she'd painted herself, vibrant and imperfect, and we were laughing about a silly mistake we'd made while cooking dinner the night before. Then, I saw Elena across the room. She looked impeccable. Every hair was in place. Her posture was regal, and she was surrounded by a small group of people. But as I watched, I noticed the pattern. She was talking at him, not with them. When someone tried to offer a different opinion, I saw her jaw tighten. I saw the wall go up. One by one, the people in her circle drifted away, exhausted by the effort of never being allowed to be right. Later in the evening, we crossed paths near the balcony. Clara had gone to get drinks, and for a moment, it was just the two of us. "You look different, Gabriel," she said. Her voice was still sharp, still searching for a weakness. "I see you've traded precision for art. I suppose it's easier to be with someone who doesn't hold you to a high standard." I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. I didn't feel the familiar spike of blood pressure. I just felt a profound sense of pity. "It's not about standards, Elena," I said calmly. "It's about space. Clara gives me the space to be human. She gives me the space to be wrong. And in return, I give her the same. We don't spend our lives building walls. We spend them building a home." She scoffed, a short, bitter sound. "A home built on mistakes. How messy." "It is messy," I agreed. "But it's real, and it's a lot warmer than the palace you've built for yourself. You've won every argument we ever had, Elena. You kept your pride. You kept your record clean. But look around. You're the queen of a very empty castle." For a split second, I saw it. The mask slipped. For one heartbeat, I saw a flicker of the girl I had fallen in love with. The one who was terrified of being inadequate. The one who used her ego as a suit of armor because she didn't believe she was enough without it. I saw the loneliness that comes with being perfect. I thought she might say it. I thought, just maybe, after everything, she might say, "I'm sorry I drove you away." But the wall was too thick. The mortar had dried. "I don't regret anything," she said, her voice turning back to steel. "I maintained my integrity. If you couldn't handle a woman who knows her worth, that's your failure, not mine." I smiled, a sad, final smile. "I know, Elena, it's always my failure, and you're always right. I hope that keeps you warm at night." I turned and walked back toward Clara. As I did, I felt the last lingering thread of my old life dissolve. I realized that Elena's greatest punishment wasn't the divorce. It wasn't the lost house or the legal fees. Her punishment was that she had to keep being her. She had to stay trapped in a world where she could never learn, never apologize, and never truly connect. I'm an engineer. I still value precision, but I've learned that the most important calculation in any relationship is the one that allows for human error. A year later, Clara and I were sitting in our small, cluttered garden. We were trying to build a birdhouse, and it was going terribly. The roof was crooked, and I'd accidentally hammered a nail through the wrong side. "Oh, Gabriel," Clara laughed, looking at the disaster. "I think we've invented the world's first, avant-garde, birdhouse. I totally messed up the measurements." "No," I laughed back, putting the hammer down. "I'm the one who suggested this type of wood. My bad. I was totally wrong about the density. We looked at each other and laughed. We didn't argue. We didn't keep score. We just admitted we were wrong, fixed what we could, and enjoyed the mess. I looked up at the sky, thinking about the missions I used to design. In space, if you don't correct your course when you're off track, you drift forever into the dark. In life, it's the same. I'm not drifting anymore. I've found my orbit, and the best part is, I don't have to be perfect to stay there. Wow, that was something, wasn't it? I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm still processing some parts, so let's talk about it in the comments. I'll be down there waiting for your thoughts. Don't forget to like and share if you had a good time with me. See you in the next one.